How does the millionaire mind work? What does it really take to be the best in your field? Is there a secret to success in life?
I aim for stuff so big that the dream is bigger than the fear.
If you help other people get what they want, you will get what you want.
The easiest thing I've ever done was to earn $1 million. The most difficult thing I've ever done was to believe it could happen to me.
If you want to have more, you have to become more. Success is not a doing process, it's a becoming process.
You start changing your mind. You start changing how you think. You start picking up new ideas and information. And I'm telling you, if you'll do that, your whole life will change. Don't do this any longer. Wish for a better wind. The key is to wish for the wisdom to set a better sail. Utilize whatever wind it blows to take you wherever you want to go. That is the philosophy I picked up at age 25, and it revolutionized my whole life.
This is Success Profiles, the interview show that features world-changing entrepreneurs, high achievers, experts, and more. Success Profiles was created and produced to inspire and empower you to greatness. If you want to be the best, learn from the best. Now, here's your host, Daniel Fazina.
Hello, friend, and welcome to Success Profiles. That's right, I am your host, Daniel Fazina. So excited to be with you today. Got another amazing guest in store for you. And today's focus is going to be on relationships, marriage in particular. We've got an amazing marriage expert that's going to come on the show and help us with some insights in that area. Before we get to our guest, just want to remind you, you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Success Profiles. You can check out all the archives there as well. We are also on YouTube at Success Profiles. All right, our special guest today is none other than Dr. Gary Chapman. Now, as anyone who has attended one of his marriage conferences knows, Dr. Gary Chapman's expertise in marriage begins with the success and failures he and his wife Carolyn have experienced in their marriage of more than 45 years. He is just the man to turn to for help on improving or healing our most important relationships. His own life experiences, plus the over 35 years of pastoring and marriage counseling, led him to publish his first book in the Love Language series, The 5 Love Languages, The Secret to Love That Lasts. Many of the millions of readers credit this continual New York Times bestseller with saving their marriages by showing them simple and practical ways to communicate. And it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Gary Chapman right now on Success Profiles. Dr. Chapman, you are on Success Profiles. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Daniel. It's good to be with you.
Well, it's an honor for me to speak with you. This has been a long time coming. Very excited to have you. Because you are one of the world's foremost experts on marriage and creating a love that lasts. Your book, The 5 Love Languages, has been a continuous New York Times bestseller, and it's really been transformational for my wife and myself in our marriage. So I want to ask you, in all of your years of counseling, what do you feel are some of the major attributes or the qualities that people need to have in order to have a successful marriage?
Well, I think, first of all, Daniel, they have to choose a loving attitude. By nature, we tend to be selfish.
Right.
And we think in terms of, what you ought to be doing for me. Love is the opposite. Love is, what can I do for you? How can I make your life easier? So I think it requires that attitude. And I say attitude because we often think of love as a feeling. And there is an emotional aspect, to be sure. But if you don't have an attitude of love, if you don't have the outlook that I'm here in this relationship to enrich your life, you get that going both ways, and you're probably going to have a really good marriage. So I think that's the first essential. I think there's another essential. I think you have to be willing to acknowledge and deal effectively with your failures, because none of us are perfect. We sometimes say things and do things that actually hurt our spouse. And if we don't deal with them, then that event becomes an emotional barrier between the two of us. So I think learning to love and having an attitude of love, and then learning how to effectively deal with our failures, which involves apology and forgiveness, I think those are two essentials to having a good relationship.
Very powerful stuff, and I totally agree with that. I also want to talk about another aspect that people may not hear as much about, but I think it's just as essential, and you can kind of comment and weigh in on this. But what about commitment? We talk about, in this country, unfortunately, a lot of marriages, upwards of 50% I've read, end in divorce. And I talk to people who are joining my business, and a lot of them quit, and they ask, is it a surprise that people quit your business, or are you upset by it? I said no, because if half the people in America can't commit to their own marriage, what makes you think they were going to commit to your business? So I always kind of put that in perspective. But what's your thought on commitment in a marriage as well?
Well, I think it's important, Daniel. What we found, I wrote a book called The Second Half of Marriage, called Married and Still Loving It.
Love it.
The boys and challenges of the second half, okay?
Sure.
And what we found, I say we because I wrote it with Dr. Harold Myra, who was for 30 years the president of the magazine Christianity Today. We found that couples who are thriving in the second half have commitment. They have resilience. They've gone through some things. They've had some difficult spots in their marriage, but their choice is always to get up. We're going to do this together. We're going to find a way to make this work. They have that sense of commitment. Those who don't have commitment, it's pretty easy in today's world to give up.
Right.
Because there's a lot of pressure on marriage. And you can get to the place where you feel like, I am so unhappy, I just want to get out of this place. And I understand that feeling. But, having the commitment to stay there and to work through the problems rather than run away from the problems, far more likely going to end you in a positive place.
I love it. That's great stuff. For people who are not familiar with the 5 love languages, can you kind of give us a high-level overview of what that is? Because, when you can learn how to speak each other's dialect and express love in a way that your partner appreciates and vice versa, I think it's transformational. So can you tell us a little bit about the 5 love languages?
Yeah, what I discovered in my counseling is that what makes one person feel loved doesn't make another person feel loved. And most of us come into marriage with the idea that whatever makes me feel loved, I'll do that for my spouse. So if words of affirmation make me feel loved, I'll give them words of affirmation. But if that's not their love language, it's not meaning to them what it would mean to me. So we discovered there's 5 basic ways that people communicate love emotionally, and we call them the 5 love languages. One of them is words of affirmation, using words to commend them or affirm them for the way they look, for something they did, or their personality, or anything about them. Just words. Words are powerful. And then a second love language is acts of service, doing something for the other person that they would like for you to do. In a marriage, that is such things as washing dishes, vacuuming floors, changing the baby's diaper, anything the other person would like. The old saying is, actions speak louder than words.
Right.
And it's true for these people. If this is their love language, they do speak louder than words. And then there's gifts. It's universal to give gifts as an expression of love. The gift says, they were thinking about me. Look what they got for me. And the gift does not have to be expensive. We've always said it's the thought that counts. But I remind you, it's not the thought left in your head that counts. It's the gift that came out of the thought in your head. And then number 4 is quality time. Giving your spouse your undivided attention. I do not mean sitting on the couch watching television. Someone else has your attention. I'm talking about sitting on the couch with the TV off, looking at each other, talking and interfacing with each other, or taking a walk down the road as you talk, or going out to eat, assuming that you talk. It's giving the person your undivided attention. And then number 5 is physical touch. We've long known the emotional power of physical touch. In a marriage, that is such things as holding hands, kissing, embracing, the whole sexual part of marriage, arm around the shoulder, driving down the road, put your hand on their leg, sitting around the house and they walk by and you trip them. I'm kidding on that one. Okay, I'm kidding. Don't trip your wife. And here's the basic idea. Out of the 5 love languages, each of us has a primary love language. Very similar to spoken language. Everyone grows up speaking a language with a dialect. That's the one you understand best. We call it our native tongue. I grew up speaking English, Southern style, okay? And so the same is true with love. We have a primary language. And seldom does a husband and wife have the same language. But we speak our own language and not their language. And we miss them. So you can be sincere in expressing love, but your spouse doesn't get it emotionally because you're speaking your language and not their language. So the key is learning how to speak the other person's language. And you're right, we've seen tremendous changes in people's lives when they learn how to speak each other's language. In fact, I've had couples come back 3 weeks after reading the book and say to me, Gary, this has changed everything. I mean, the climate is totally different in our house now, that we're trying to speak each other's love language. So it really does make a difference.
Oh, I definitely agree with you there. And your book revolutionized my marriage, as I mentioned, because my wife and I have totally different love languages. I'm more of a words of affirmation kind of guy and quality time guy. She is definitely acts of service. So she'd come home and she'd be tearing up the house like the Tasmanian devil, cooking dinner and, cleaning the whole house. And I'd be like, honey, just sit down and pay attention to me, And I'd be like, oh, you look great tonight. I love you and this and that. And she'd be like, if you love me, do the dishes. Take out the trash, So we were totally missing each other, but your book changed everything. So, Dr. Chapman, I want to thank you so much for the great work you're doing. I want to encourage you to keep up the good work, and you're changing the world. You and your books are revolutionizing marriages, and so I just want to say God bless you and keep up the great work. Thanks so much for joining us here on Success Profiles.
Well, thank you, Daniel. It was good to be with you. Keep up the good work.
Well, thank you, and I will certainly try to. Well, friend, that about does it for another exciting episode of Success Profiles. Once again, our special guest has been Dr. Gary Chapman. He's the author of The 5 Love Languages and many other awesome books. You can check him out at www.5lovelanguages.com. This is Daniel Fazina. I'll see you next time on Success Profiles.
You've been listening to Success Profiles with Daniel Fazina. Join us next time as we bring you another empowering interview designed to help you achieve greatness here on Success Profiles.
Hi, I'm Kevin McCullough. You may know me from Fox News or Talk Radio. Have you ever wondered or pondered the idea of working for yourself or owning your own business? Using your skills to build a vision or a passion for your own life? Think about it. No boss, no politics, no compromise, no commute, no employees, no discrimination, and no educational requirements. Just building something positive that impacts people's lives. Well, you can get started owning your own energy company for less than $500. Would you like to know how? It's through a great company called Ambit. You can find out more when you go to freepowernow.com. That's freepowernow.com. Or if you're really interested in getting started, call my good friend Daniel Fazina, an independent energy consultant with Ambit. He's ready to help you get started on a brand new career. 205-55-AMBIT. That's 205-55-AMBIT or freepowernow.com.